Thank
And
So-
can everybody see Paul in the big screen?
If you're unmuted, you can put it in the chat. If anybody's having trouble seeing or hearing, let me know in the chat, or just unmute yourself and chat it out so we can hopefully fix the problem. Welcome everybody. This is Paul Richmond. Paul is a very talented artist that I met at a lecture at the Monterey, what is it? The Monterey Art Council.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
You had done a lecture for them, and I talked to you afterwards, and I went, well, I really like this guy. He's great.
Yes, I
remember
that. I can't believe that was the first time we met. I feel like I've known you forever.
I know. In another life. In another life.
That's right.
And I stopped by, he's doing a huge mural on front of Open Ground Studio on Fremont. And he just finished one at what's the name of the teenage, the
Palenque Arts Teen Center. They just opened in Seaside. So I've been teaching art for them for elementary kids. They have a space at the MLK school, and now they've opened a teen center too. So we did a mural with the teenagers, which was a lot of fun.
It was amazing. And if you go on Paul's website, or is it on Instagram? Polyworld.
Polyworld, yes.
Polyworld. He has really fun videos of him doing pieces of the mural, and they're very fun to watch. His I can't think of her name, your friend that does with you.
Oh, Brenda
and him are always very campy and having fun.
Basically, we're just a couple of hams, and so we love attention and doing anything silly, which is good because it brings a lot of attention to our work and the causes we work with. So anyway, it pays off. A lot of artists are very introverted, but I'm grateful I'm not one of those.
Well, and Paul is also going to do us a at our in-person Central Coast Art Association meeting, which is at El Estero by Dennis Menace Park, the little building that's right there. He's going to do a lecture, at there for our group on the business of social media and all of that. So come down.
Yes, I can teach you how to be just as big of a ham as I am.
There you go. It's at 2 o'clock at El Estero on the 22nd of July.
Yes.
So today you're going to do a portrait, yes?
I am, yes.
And this is in oil.
It is. Actually, I don't know if you know Edie. She just opened a gallery in Carmel. My friend Edie, she asked me if I would display some smaller paintings next month in her gallery, and I said sure, which I always do. I always say yes to everything. Then I realized actually I don't have small paintings, so I'm glad that we're doing this today. You see, I've done a couple that are up there. So I'm going to do one more today while we're hanging out.
Now, so what do you do in prep of or do you just have a photograph, or have you already manipulated these in your Photoshop like you normally do?
I photoshopped it, yes. My background is actually illustration, so I've done a lot of commercial art in my career, and including digital work and Photoshop. So I use that as a tool to help me sketch. I composite photos, or I'll just draw in there, or do a little of both. I like to have a reference that I can look at while I'm working, and then I'll change it as I go, but it gives me a starting point. So I've already done that. I have a reference of a person's face that I kind of just painted some colors on in Photoshop to give me some ideas.
And then you have collage in there that makes texture that you also use
yes.
in your painting. I couldn't post it on your I should send it to you. I made a reel, my first reel.
I saw that. Good job. Gold star for you.
Gold star for me. I took 3 pictures of Paul and doing the mural, and he had a very, an 8 regular size paper from the printer of the mouth that he was doing, and you could see all this texture behind it and the lips that he had drawn over it. And I'm telling you, all of the detail that was in that, he just meticulously had these layers, and I was so in awe of how you do that. It's like, don't look that careful.
Well,
And
that's the beauty of working with a good reference, and I definitely, when you're painting a mural and you're working with other people, that's
yeah,
important.
sort of imperative, yeah.
Have to
But
be able to all be on the same page. But
now
anyway,
you had I took one of your little online videos of portrait painting too. There's that wonderful one of the lady that she had the sort of Tutankhamun
yes, yeah.
reference, and it was I learned a lot. And is that still available on your?
It is, yes. I do a lot of art instruction videos, and you can find them on our website, artmakesus.com. Or if you happen to be a member of Skillshare, I also put them all on there too. So
Okay.
they're
I'll
both
put
places. I'm everywhere, everywhere I can be.
that was what?
Skillshare, which is an awesome resource. Just go to skillshare.com, and artists from all over create instructional videos, and then you just subscribe to Skillshare, and then you can watch everyone's videos in any subject matter you want, from
That's
painting, drawing, digital art, video, all kinds, anything creative. It's a
awesome. The other website that it's on is?
My site is artmakesus.com. That's where I put all of my lessons. All right, I am finally ready. You'll see why it took me so long. So when I paint, I like to use every color. So here's my palette.
Every color.
Lots of paint. You never know what you're gonna need, and I never waste it. So if whatever I don't end up using on this, I just throw onto another canvas at the end. So I'm gonna start out by just getting some color on there.
So you don't have anything drawn at first, no?
No, you're gonna see the whole process from start to finish. And you're really challenging me here, making me do this in an hour. We'll see how it goes, but I like a challenge.
Now, are you looking at your reference photo?
Yes, I have it taped up to a easel right over here. And a little teaser for the end of this session today. The mural that she was talking about is actually happening right out there. My friends that are out there working on it as we speak. So
are they?
At the end, yeah. So I'm just sitting in here with a nice fan on me. They're all baking out there in the sun.
I was hoping you weren't up on that lift thing going, oh, I forgot about it.
No, but that was why I was like scrambling at the last minute, because you kind of lose track of time out there in the sun. But I will, if you want, at the end of this, I'll walk you out and show you guys the mural that we're working on, because it is coming along. I think we're going to finish on Wednesday. That's my guess.
Incredibly fast for that big of a space.
Yeah, it goes quickly. We have some great helpers. We have a Yak student helping us today. So if anybody wants some mural experience, come on down to Open Ground Studios, but you have to come fast, because we're not going to be working on it too much longer.
How long did it take you to draw it on it there?
To draw it on the wall?
Yeah.
One morning. We started last Thursday, so about 8 o'clock. And I would say we had it on there by noon. But that we used a grid. I'm not bragging.
It's how big is it? It's like 10 feet by 40 feet.
Something like that.
Oh yeah, just a couple hours. No problem.
It was a lot of squares on the grid. I know that. But the grid is very helpful and in fact, I'm even using a little makeshift version of a grid right here. I took my reference photo and just make little dots in the halfway point on each side and do the same thing on my reference. So I kind of imagine some grid lines just to make sure I'm putting things where they're supposed to be. Especially when I'm busy chatting, you know, things can end up going who knows where. So I like to keep it kind of loose and sketchy. It's interesting. I started out painting in a much tighter, more almost like photorealistic style when I graduated from art school. I went to Columbus College of Art and Design in Ohio, which is where I'm from. And I don't know, realism was a big thing there, and a lot of like very tight realist painters. And so that's kind of how I learned and painted that way for a while. And then I just got so bored. Every brush stroke felt so tedious, and I wanted the painting process to be as fun and feel as creative as designing the painting, because even then I was, you know, kind of conceptualizing the paintings in Photoshop. And I felt like all the creativity was happening when I was doing that part, and then painting just felt like a very technical, you know, exercise. So I decided I had to do something to make it a little bit more fun and creative for myself. And that's nothing against, you know, realist painters, if that's how you work. I love that still and still do that sometimes, but it just was not as fun for me anymore after doing it for a while. So I like to dive into things head first and hope for the best. That's kind of my motto in life. And so I had a show lined up at a gallery in Provincetown, and I had about 6 months, I think, to do 12 paintings. And I committed to them that I was going to do the entire show without using a paintbrush. I said, I'm going to use palette knife. I'm going to use, you know, other materials. I just want to really force myself to experiment, because of the art that I was drawn to when I would go to galleries was always the more kind of expressive work. So I wanted to do that.
I think that, I mean, that for me is so it resonates, because it maybe other artists too feel like, you know, they do one thing for a while and then they grow and they want to know more and get more creative in what they're doing or expand their knowledge.
Yes. And you know, I think for those who did happen to go to art school, which by the way, I don't keep bringing that up as a way of like trying to make it sound like that's a important or a requirement of some of the best artists I know are self-taught. But I heard constantly when I was in school that artists are supposed to just kind of pick one style and do the same thing over and over again,
I
and
have
be
heard that
known for
many
that.
times
You know, it's
from
like
yeah.
like I can't do that. I'm way too ADD for that approach. I'm all over the place. And thankfully, at least in my career, it has worked in my advantage. I think people who follow me have been willing to, you know, allow me to be an artist who kind of explores different things, and they just come right along for the ride. You never know what you're going to get with a Paul Richmond show. So I enjoy that. It's what's made it fun for me all these years. I started taking art lessons when I was just before my 4th birthday, because all I wanted to do was sit at the dining room table and draw. And my
Bravo for
parents,
your parents, man.
well, yeah, seriously. And especially when you know that, you know, neither of them were artists. They had no art, you know, background. We were in the Midwest. My dad worked for the railroad. My mom worked for a mortgage company. So this kid that just wanted to draw, to them, it was kind of just like the weirdest thing in the world. But they were very supportive, and they knew that I was serious about it. And so they found an artist in our neighborhood, and she had only taught adults up until that point. And so they called her and asked if she would teach me. And I don't think they told her my age, because when I showed up at her door, this little 3-year-old me, she told me years later she was very surprised by that, and she spent the first part of the conversation trying to think how she could like get out of it. But thankfully she didn't, and we really clicked. And she is big part of the reason why I do this today, and also why it's really important to me to be a teacher myself and share that with other people, because I think that's really important when you've been fortunate enough to have support and to learn, skills throughout your life. You should share that.
That is really wonderful. It gives me
Yeah.
chills.
Yeah, Linda was my art teacher's name. We've remained very good friends all through the years. She was a huge inspiration to me. She passed away in 2020, and her family always treated me like one of the family. So I was there with her at that time. And so I just kind of feel like I'm carrying on that tradition now. I teach people all over the world on Zoom, and also I have a lot of people that I work with in person too. So I think
Yeah,
it's fun for me. I love that. I get inspired by my students. In fact, I see someone
yeah.
here. Wendy is, hi, Wendy. Not to call you out, but Wendy's in one of my classes I teach online, and she does the most awesome. She's doing really awesome watercolor work right now. I love the energy you get when you are working with other people who do things that are totally different than what you do.
I think any group of really even more than one person, I think us artists get so isolated that when you are
Yes.
working with other artists, there is an energy that is awesome.
Yeah, yes. And I don't know if you could tell, but I am a bit of an extrovert. And so I
I've
need
never noticed that before. Yeah.
I need that interaction. I think that most artists do. That's why I'm really grateful I'm here at Open Ground Studios. Those of you who are here in this area, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a co-op art studio in Seaside. I have a studio space out in the front room, but it's a little too close to the blaring dance music that my mural coworkers are playing right now. So I decided to come in here instead. But they have studio space for artists, and you can also just join and come in and work in the common space. But when I moved here from Ohio in 2016, I didn't know anybody in the area. And within the first month, I joined the studio, and it was totally a game changer for me. It's where I met so many wonderful people, made great connections. So very, very important to have some kind of community. Well, just like what you guys create
Yeah,
with your organization.
exactly, exactly. Now, when you're putting in your darks and you're
Mhm.
using bright colors, talk about that a little bit, because not everybody is brave enough to jump right into colors like that.
Yeah, so I definitely spent a lot of time learning about and understanding value first. I think I always tell my students that if you're trying to create any sense of uh, depth or volume, you have to understand how to work with value and how to work with like lighting and all of that. So I have done the whole kind of tonal underpainting process, and more of like a monotone base.
That embeds it in your head.
Yes, I learned that way, and I'm glad I did. It was very helpful. But I love color, and so now that I understand how value works, I jump right into color. But I'm thinking about value also, as you can see, because I jump around from putting in darks and lights, and I also really get excited about the contrasts of warm and cool tones. So you'll see I kind of jump around with
Yeah,
that too.
you don't, I know some people paint only the cools first or only the warms first, and then they put in the cools.
Mhm.
And I,
Yeah.
I'm more like you. I just jump into the colors that I like, and because
Yeah. And I wouldn't say that I always do it one way or another. It depends on the painting and the mood of the painting and the style. If I'm doing, something looser like this, or if I'm trying to be a little more tight, I might do something more strategic. But in this case, I just want to play and have fun, which is usually my approach. So I just jump right in. If anything, I always kind of go overboard with color first, and then I sit back and look at it and think, oh, that's a lot. And then I have to like tone it down or, add some neutrals or pull, push and pull some of that. So, other people build up gradually with, slowly adding color. And I actually think it's just two different approaches to the same thing, whether you put it all on and take it away, or you, just gradually build up to it. Either way, you're kind of thinking about that balance and the relationships and stuff. So just whatever works. But for me, it's more fun once I can just start to see the colors on there. So I have to go for it.
Obviously, you've drawn the figure more than once.
Yes, figure drawing was my absolute favorite class. I loved it, learned so much from it. And I always tell people, if you really want to improve your drawing, take some figure drawing classes, either online, or if you can do it in person, obviously that's even better, but whatever you can do, because that kind of continued focused practice, I think, just observational drawing and doing it quickly, I think, is really important too. The gesture drawings for me were the most valuable thing, because you can't sit there and overthink it. You only have a few minutes. You just have to keep going. And it really helps people get out of their head and just look at what's in front of you and study those shapes, and not give up if you draw something and it doesn't look exactly right. I feel like with a lot of the people that I teach, that's the biggest challenge, is just you get something on the canvas or on the paper and it's not quite doesn't quite look like what it's supposed to. You can tell something isn't working, and immediately it triggers all of those sort of imposter syndrome feelings that a lot of people get, or it's like, oh, I guess I'm not any good at this, I should just give up, or
I've only written 100 books. I'm not a writer. I can't write today.
Yeah, exactly. As a teacher, I feel like my biggest job is just being a cheerleader, because people, especially adults, really need that. I can't tell you how many people have come into I teach a class here on Monday nights, and they'll be coming in after I finish this. And and it's for adults. And so many of them come in there and they say to me the same story about some teacher from, middle school or high school that told them they weren't any good at art. And so they've just, have never done it since then.
My button.
Yeah.
No.
It's terrible. That I think that being a teacher is such a big responsibility, because your words like stick with people.
I always tell them it's just a piece of paper. We've got more.
Yes, it's really not a big deal.
It's not a big deal.
It's gonna be okay.
If it was a piano lesson, this is practice.
Yes, but no, there's this fear of doing it wrong and of being judged,
Right, there you go.
I get that. I think, anytime you do anything creative, you are putting yourself out there, and there is a vulnerability to that. And I get that. And even though I think, if anything, I have maybe too much confidence because of starting so young and having so much encouragement.
I think you develop a skin that because somebody told me art is personal. Nobody's going to like everything that you do, and somebody's going to like everything you do.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're not looking for everybody to like it, and you do it for yourself first.
Yes.
And then
it's possible to make something that everyone will like.
No.
And, and if you could, it would probably be the most generic, boring thing in the world. So and I always tell my young students, it was really cool. Yesterday I had someone who I had taught here in this Monday evening class when they were in high school, and then they went off to art school, and now they're just finishing up their last year there, but they're back home for the summer. So they stopped by to visit while we were working on the mural, and we were just talking, and they were saying what a big, what a difference it made to have this class, and that it, really helped them to build that confidence to, go to art school and to pursue what they love. And I said that that's so awesome. I said, now get ready because you're going to need even more confidence now that you're getting ready to graduate because there's a lot of rejection coming your way. And I know you're talented and you're awesome, but you're going to be rejected more times than you're going to be praised. That's just how it
Yeah,
works in this
yeah.
world. And so know that no matter what you do, I am here supporting you and loving you and thinking you're amazing, but you just have to keep going. And when one thing doesn't work, go to the next thing and keep doing it. I said, and that's the last piece of advice I'm going to give you as a teacher, because now you're going to graduate and we're going to be equals, and then you can give me advice, but just
Awesome.
don't give up, because I see too many people, experience that rejection, and I have like failed so many times. You wouldn't know that maybe looking at my Instagram, because I don't always post those. I post this,
No, who does?
but we all have the fails. I could tell so many stories about those. Those are kind
I
of
have so many failures that I don't throw away because number one, there's that emotional attachment that you put into it, but
yeah.
also, and I tell my students, when you're drawing in your sketchbook, don't tear it out. When you look back at it next week or next year, you're going to say, that was a good learning experience, or that was a lot better than I thought it was, or
Mhm.
wow, I see how I grew,
Yeah. Yes. And honestly, sometimes what we think is a fail is actually amazing, but we just don't appreciate it in the moment, because I think so many people fail to, and myself included sometimes, it's really hard to appreciate your own
Oh,
style.
oh yeah,
You
yeah.
can look at what someone else makes, and maybe it's like it would be exactly the same as something you might make, and you would think their version of it was amazing, and if you did that you would hate it. But it's just because I think we're used to how we see the world, and so
Well, and I think the way that you're painting with these pieces of color that are value related, that
Mhm.
that not everybody knows that, or has experienced that painting in value. I know about it and
Mhm.
I kind of try to do it, but it's
Yes.
always really scary to put that blue next to that orange and have that hard edge or and you're
Yes.
thinking, oh no, that's too much.
Right. Well, I don't even know what the words too much mean. But
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that.
too much is my middle name. But no, that is a good point. I think especially, and there's something too that happens with this particular subject matter also, painting a face, I
Yeah.
think maybe painting a landscape or painting a still life, people might feel a little more free to experiment, but for some reason, when they come to the face, it's just like, oh my gosh, I've got to get this perfect. I can't, and
Because
I
we
see
look at them
people,
every day and
yeah.
you look at a face every day, and if there's something that's off,
Yeah.
even though you might not be able to point it out, we do look at a face every morning in the mirror, or when we look at our husband or wife or friend or whatever.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think it causes us when we paint them sometimes to try and like overly blend and just
Uh-huh.
to get them, they get overworked. But for me, starting with this very structural kind of approach, which I don't know if this really appears very structural to you or not, but in my
You
head, I'm thinking about the structure.
you were thinking about the side of the face in the beginning with your darks and the value, and when you were dropping in your darks, it was very obvious that you
Yeah.
had that to start with. And then when you come in with that same or still a darker tone, but they're bright colors, it's it's almost like, oh no, oh wait.
Yeah, I kind of think of it like I'm carving in a way, and it helps with the paint being so thick because it actually feels that way too. Sometimes you can feel, the paint moving around, but I really do think about the three-dimensionality of the face, and I'm not really, blending anything, and I probably won't in this particular painting because I, want it to have more of that kind of harsher look. But even when I am doing something that is softer and more blended, I still start out really blocking things in. And
Even with the kid with the paper fingers.
Yes.
You started that because that is
Started
just
that.
so ethereal.
Yeah, thank you. No, I still did very, very blocked in, not as thick as this because I knew I wanted that painting to be more, softer,
Yeah.
but still thinking about the planes of the face and the way the light hits all the different parts. Absolutely. Feel free if anyone has questions or comments. I can just yammer on, but if there's something you want to chat about, let me know.
Yeah, if you don't feel comfortable unmuting yourself, you can put it in the chat. I'd be happy to ask Paul any questions, but he doesn't mind if you shout out to him.
No, I love it. What kind of work does most of the artists in this group do? Everyone kind of different, I imagine. Are there any portrait or figurative artists in here?
I don't know. Anyone?
Got to read the room. What's happening?
I know that I've done some portraits.
I was going to say, I know you have.
It's not my favorite because, but before we moved out here, because I didn't find a life drawing class, I would go
Mhm.
take one at least once a year to try
Mhm.
to, because it's amazing how quickly um that you kind of fall off. It's not that you forget, but it's like you said, that that first 5-second drawing or whatever is really pushes you out of your
Yeah.
head.
Yes. Oh yeah. Well, during COVID, my friend Bryden and I started an online figure drawing class, and we still do it once a month. And it's interesting. We kind of put our own spin on it because he's transgender, and then I'm of course a gay man. So we both have had.
Is he the one that you change paintings with?
Yes, we do that too. We have a project where we do collaborative paintings, and every
Those
15
are fun.
minutes we swap. So we're both
Yeah.
working all of them. But we do the figure drawing class and we call it redrawing masculinity because we both grew up with these ideas, kind of being taught to us of what, men were supposed to be. And obviously not fitting that mold
Not your
exactly.
reality.
Maybe you can't tell, but I'm not exactly like, John Wayne. So we do that class and we both take turns posing, but while we're posing, we're also having a really interesting conversation with everybody about those kinds of topics. And I think it's a really interesting experience because usually in figure drawing classes, the model is
Oh
very
yeah.
quiet and you're not really even thinking of them as a human. You're just looking at them as more of an object, I guess. And so in our class, you can't do that because we're just yakking away and but it's really interesting and just comparing the way we physically look because we're both men, but we both look very different. And so that's been a really cool collaboration. I love collaborations. I love working with other artists on murals, on projects like that. I think that that's another great way to just get out of, your own, way of
Head.
thinking and
Yeah.
see how someone else might.
Wendy wants to know, do you plan your colors before you paint, or is your color selection spontaneous?
A little of both. I have a plan. I like the security of knowing there is a plan, and then I also don't follow it. I start with it and then do my own thing. But if
And
I don't have it there, it makes me I'm not happy. So it's just a weird thing. I mean, I do follow it somewhat, but I change it as I go. So
painting tells you what it needs.
yeah, no, that is so true. I say that to my students all the time.
Oh yeah.
You have to listen to your painting because it knows what it wants better than you. And usually my paintings end up looking nothing like what I think they're going to, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
And Irene wants to see what you're painting from at some point.
Oh, okay, yes. I have it all taped up here, but
I understand. Yeah.
before we finish, I'll yank it off and show you.
Now, is this somebody you know or?
No, this is actually, this one is a made up person. I just sketched this one out in Photoshop myself, and
What
it's
was your thought
from image.
behind his pose?
Well, I want it kind of along the same lines as what we were just talking about.
Mm.
I like painting. Well, I paint all kinds of people if you've seen my work, but
Yeah.
I especially like painting men in ways that we haven't always seen them portrayed. When you look at art history, you think about all the paintings of like Greek gods and sculptures of Greek gods and people who,
Right.
being very traditionally masculine. And so I like painting men that I relate to more in a way that I relate to. So softer, more maybe like this one is I'm kind of an introspective looking pose. I guess I just like kind of taking the gender roles that our society has
Yeah,
invented.
kind of like what they might paint a woman in that,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
contemplative. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like men are allowed to think too. He's not just like thinking about monster trucks either. He could be thinking about something else. But I think that's so important because otherwise, like, I grew up the funniest story, and I'm going to tell that this weekend is Pride here in Monterey. I don't know if you guys knew that or not, but I'm going to be speaking at that. And because I think I'm the gayest thing that they've ever seen around here. So they always ask me to speak at all of those things. And one of the stories that I love to tell, and I'll be telling the story on Saturday. So if you come, spoiler alert, but
Well,
when I was a kid, my role model was first my art teacher Linda, who I told you about, and then I loved like just all like Disney princesses and Barbie and all the things that little boys in the 80s in the Midwest were not supposed to like. And one weekend, my dad told me he was a little nervous, or he thought that I just had too many like female role models. So he said, okay, we're going to sit down and watch all of the Superman movies like binge watch them. And so I said, okay, that's cool. So we did. And at the end of that movie marathon, he asked me what I thought. And I said, oh, I thought that was great. I really enjoyed it. I want to be just like Lois Lane when I grow up. And that was the moment my dad gave up.
I love you, son.
Yeah,
You
okay,
do you, baby.
go do your thing. It's fine. No, he became very supportive. It took some work, but anyway, I just love that story because
Well, it's Ohio.
everyone has to be themselves, and I think that's a good thing to think about as an artist too, because nobody sees the world the way that you do, and it's a waste of time to try and mimic someone else's style, or
Right.
like I need to do what is trendy or going to sell in a gallery or anything. When I first started out painting, uh, about 20 years ago was when I first really started trying to get my work taken seriously in galleries and stuff. I was doing a lot of paintings that had LGBT themes and dealing with personal narrative and stuff, because painting has first and foremost always just been like therapy for me as a way of kind of dealing with life. And all the galleries that I approached at that time said, well, we can't show this. Nobody's going to want to buy this. They said, we like your work, and we think you have technical skills, and we like the way that you paint, but nobody's going to buy this work. And they said you should paint something that will appeal to more of a mainstream audience. And they said also, at this point, you're going to need to use a different name because there's too much online about this work. And when people come into a gallery to buy a painting, one of the first things they're going to do is Google you to see who you are and who collects you and whatever things
Oh,
that collectors
God.
care about. And they said you're going to need a new name because you have this Google problem. When people Google you, it just brings up all this gay stuff. And I thought about it because I was young and I really wanted this to be my career. And I was like, is that going to really stop me from having the career that I wanted to have? But ultimately, I just decided, if someone is going to choose not to buy my work, uh, not to buy a painting that they like, just because maybe I paint some other stuff that they don't necessarily relate to. I don't want them owning my work anyway. It's not worth it. So
Yeah.
I did not go that route, and it has proven to be a really like the best decision ever for me. I don't judge anybody else for doing, anything differently. And I have friends who do use the alias thing and that works for them. But you for me, it just felt too much like going back in the closet. I didn't want that.
Right.
And
So obviously you sell your work.
I do. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm all about that. You can call me a sellout, you can call me whatever. I've always wanted this to be my, life's work. And so I have fun with that side of it too. I enjoy marketing. I enjoy having relationships with collectors. And one of the really good outcomes of that situation for me of being rejected by galleries at first was that I jumped right into the early forms of social media and sharing my work online and connected directly with people who wanted to buy my work. And at that time, most people were still going through galleries. So if you weren't in a gallery, you couldn't really have a career. That was the mindset. The gallery owners decided who got to have an art career, but that's
So
not the case now.
today, do you sell most of your things?
I do work with some galleries now, but yes, a lot of people still buy work directly from me, and I love that. I love getting to know them. I love not having to pay 50% to a gallery. But thankfully the mindset has changed, and there are some really good galleries out there, and I'm happy to work with them too. But no, I would always prefer to work directly with uh, people. Now, introverted artists that I know, I tell them go find a gallery because they don't want to deal with that, and I
Yeah.
get that too. But I like the interaction.
Tell your Dolly story.
Oh yeah, so one of my big female role models as a kid was Dolly Parton. I mean, who growing up in the '80s didn't love her? And I just always thought she was so cool. And I think in the Midwest, she was like the closest thing maybe to gay culture that I could find because she kind of looked like a drag queen. I don't know. I just thought she was awesome. And it was a very cool full circle moment. Actually, kind of connected with my art teacher who I was telling you about earlier. She always loved Dolly as well, and she had a Southern accent and just kind of reminded me of her in some ways. And when Linda passed away, a couple weeks after that, I got a message on Instagram from someone who asked me about if we could talk about a painting commission. So I said sure, and then he called me that night. And we talked about it for quite a while before he told me who he was, but he's the creative director for Dolly, and said that the painting was actually for her, that she wanted a painting for her living room of butterflies because she loves butterflies. And he had been following my work, um, not even knowing that, I grew up like running around the house singing 9 to
Singing
5,
Dolly.
Dolly.
Singing Jolene.
Yeah, Jolene, exactly. Now I can tell her I've met the real one. I don't know how she'll feel about you though.
No, I'm not her. I'm not the husband killer.
Always trying to steal her man. But no, she wanted a painting of butterflies, and he had seen my work and thought it would be a good fit, and showed it to her, and she loved it, and she loved the bright colors. And
Yep.
so I just kind of took that as a sign, like from Linda, because that was the kind of thing she would have been so excited about. And so I did get to do that and drive it to Dolly's house and hang it up, and it's kind of a dream come
Awesome.
true moment for me. I really enjoyed that. And then actually
Did you
we
fan out?
oh well, no, I played it super cool. Please, I've never been cool. But the coolest thing that came from that whole situation was that we were doing a virtual kind of memorial for Linda, and a bunch of artists. We organized an auction. They were donated stuff that we could, artwork and various things that we could auction off online, because this was also still during COVID, so we couldn't do it in person. And we were raising money to start a scholarship fund in Linda's name for kids in her hometown that wanted to go into art. And so Dolly donated one of her guitars from her tour, and then she made a video tribute to Linda that we played during
Oh,
the
wow.
event. So she really was like as wonderful as, you know, she seems, like one of the few celebrities I think who kind of lives up to the hype. I was just very, very impressed and touched by all of that, honestly.
You're doing really well. We got about 10 more minutes, but we can go another 20 if you want. So
Okay, no, I should be fine. I'm feeling good.
you're,
Got to save time to take you outside too and show you
yeah.
the mural. You can see all my sweaty friends out there who are working real hard while I'm sitting in here nice and cool chatting with you guys.
When you're doing a 3/4 view like this, it's so hard to get that far cheek. What's the secret?
That's a good question. I always say when you're painting, drawing a face uh, in any position, really, the main secret is to not think of it as a face. Because as soon as you do, you're gonna start drawing what you, like you said earlier, you know, you
What
look
you,
at faces all the
yeah.
time, you look in the mirror, you see yourself. So if I am just drawing a face, and like I know I said I drew this one, but I had kind of a certain face in mind that I wanted it to feel like. But if you're just kind of like drawing what you think a face looks like, the tendency is we normally draw ourselves. I've done that before. Like I've tried
Yeah, people have,
to
I
do a
did that.
portrait of
Somebody
somebody.
asked me, is that a self-portrait? And I go, no, I was looking at another person.
Yeah, that's just the face we're used to. So, you
Oh,
know, we just
wow. Oh,
so I just I really try not to even think about it as a face and truly just look at it as shapes. And you faces are affected by all the rules of perspective, just like, you know, anything else is. And it's easier to see if you're drawing, you know, a road going into the distance or something.
right,
You can see
right.
the vanishing point, but that same thing happens, you know, to the human figure too. And I think it's really interesting to, when you kind of start off in a more structural way like I did, it's a little easier to think about that because you do have some lines and angles to play with. When things are too fluid and curvy, I feel like that it's easier or it's harder to think about the perspective of
So did
everything.
you work out a lot of that perspective on your photograph?
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah, this one actually, because I'm busy chatting with you guys, it's becoming pretty true, I would say, to what I sketched. You'll see here in a minute. I haven't changed it too much. I love faces though. I love painting. I love painting people. I always have. I think people are fascinating, and I love painting all kinds of different people. And then especially when I can talk with them, or at least, you know, have some sense of who they are, what they're about. I like thinking about that while I'm
Uh,
working, even though I just said, you know, don't think of it as a person.
Well, when you
Still,
did that video that I did of
yes.
the lady with the, I can't remember her name,
Uh-huh, Glodine.
Glodine, yeah. And it was fascinating that the way that she liked that, well, it wasn't Tutankhamun, but whoever it was. And
Uh-huh.
and how you integrated that, and it just became so personal,
Yes.
that portrait. And it was, I'd never thought of that. It always seems like when you're painting something like that, it's very static for the artist.
Yeah, that's a really good example though of like kind of going into it without any um or at least letting
Right.
the painting tell you what it wants to be or letting the process happen.
Yeah,
Because yeah, I would never have thought of that either. I would not, I mean, I love Claudine and I think she is very regal, but I wouldn't have looked at her and thought, oh, you should be painted as a pharaoh. But
right.
it was she had always kind of related to this pharaoh and this, and she, so I the class that Jolene's talking about, I actually integrated the interview with the model into the lesson. So each video you get a little bit of her talking, and then I'm painting her, and so it's really about how do you bring the personality of the subject kind of more front and center into the work that you create, and I really enjoy that. I think that kind of goes back maybe to my illustration background. I love storytelling. I like creating something that has a bit of a narrative or at least an emotion to it that I can relate to. That to me is kind of, and that's why I love painting expressively too, because I think that's just another avenue for letting some of that emotion come into the work. You can see it and feel it in the brushstrokes as well as, you know, the subject matter itself. So,
That class really gave me one of those big jumps in my learning curve.
oh, I'm glad to hear that.
Even though I don't do a lot of that, it in the way that I think, it
Mm-hmm.
even in doing plein air painting or whatever, it made me have that a different mindset than that.
Yeah, yes. I love that about art. I think, you know, and I've talked about her a lot, but my childhood art teacher is such a big influence on me, and her work was always like that. So I think I just grew up seeing art that was more than just a pretty picture on a
Yeah.
wall. She used her paintings to kind of deal with a lot of the trauma from her life and her childhood. So, you know, I saw these and they were beautiful paintings, but I just grew up seeing them and hearing the stories behind them and knowing that this was a form of communication. This is not,
It's another creative block.
yeah, yes, absolutely. And
Sarah said, "Thank you so much for the demo. I'm a beginning student and learning a lot from your demo. I love your energy and encouragement. Your style is beautiful and unique."
oh, thank you so much. I
And
appreciate
Wendy
that.
says, "Very magical, Paul, to watch you paint."
Oh, thank you guys. That's so nice. Can you just like hang out with me every time I paint and say nice things? I appreciate that. We all need a little
All painting
validation.
online.
Yeah. How are we on time? We only have about 5 more minutes, so let me do a couple more brush strokes, and then we're gonna go out and visit my friends out there.
And will you send us a picture that we can post of this when you're finished?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Pleasure. And if you want to see it in person, go to Edie's gallery next month. So in Carmel, gonna
Okay.
have several pieces there, and her work is awesome. I've always
What is
loved.
that gallery called?
It's I think it's just her name, Edie, and I'm gonna mispronounce her last name, but it starts with an M.
If you send it to me, I will
Okay.
from
Yes.
our
I'm being a bad at marketing right now. I should have had that prepared. But she does beautiful kind of realistic figurative work. And then she has one wall in her gallery that she invites different artists from the community each month to show their work on. So she asked me to do it next month. So come on by. I'm going to be doing an artist
Edie,
talk there.
somebody, Jane, Jane found it. Or
Oh, thank you.
Judy. Edie
Judy found it.
Matsumoto.
That's it. Yeah.
Matsumoto, Edie Matsumoto Art and Design on mission between 5th and 6th.
Oh, Edie's on the call. Great.
Oh, there we go. We
Edie's
don't,
on the call?
oh,
Looks like it.
Edie, hi.
There you go.
See, I'm
Hi,
trying. I'm
Edie.
plugged. Well, you can go down here and tell them yourself where to come. Edie does really great things at the gallery too. A lot of community events and opportunities for people to come and talk and share their work. And she's kind of bringing back the sort of bohemian art vibe in Carmel. So I'm going to be doing an artist talk there sometime in July. I don't remember when, but sometime. All right.
Let us know. I'll put that on our,
She I had a show a few years ago at the Pacific Grove Art Center, and she was in one of the other galleries. So that was the first time I really discovered her work, and I just really loved it. And so she just opened her gallery not long ago, and it's an awesome space. I love that. All right, are you guys ready to go outside and see a mural now?
you bet.
Want to go on a little
can you
field
show
trip?
Show us your source
Oh,
document.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Source
Right.
image,
Thank
right.
you. Keep me on track here. Okay, I'm gonna do my best now with this moving you around. Let's see how this is gonna work. Okay, let's go. Oh, there, Edie's putting it in the chat.
Oh, Paul's talk. There you go.
Let's see.
July
There it is.
22nd.
You see?
Oh,
Oh, yes.
Yeah, pretty similar.
Uh-huh.
So I just kind of painted that in Photoshop to have something to look at, and now there's my painted version. All right, let's go outside.
okay.
This is Open Ground Studios, by the way. That's kind of like the main room. And here's my very messy little space where I work. That's the painting
That's
Jillian
my
was talking
favorite painting. Yeah. The one on top.
about my work. All right, let's go outside. Oh,
Everybody's gone.
hi, Jill. All right, well, it's mostly covered by scaffolding right now, but you can see.
Wow.
Oh, wow. You've gotten far.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Last Thursday, this was just a big yellow wall.
Yeah. And a
So
couple
behind
eyes
the
in the mouth.
scaffolding are the lips that
Oh,
Jill
the
was
lips
talking
are,
about.
yeah.
Yeah, there it is. All right.
Oh, this is really awesome, Paul. Thank you for doing this. And I can't wait. I hope I can make it to the, let me, hold on just a second. Jane, if you could stop, or did you?
I can stop recording.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thanks for coming.